Hi there. Welcome to Tuesday Talks. We are traveling this week, not very far, but we are at the Petoskey District Library, as you might have guessed with all of these books behind me. And in fact, we're in the Michigan room. Is that right? I think learning, and back behind me are books on the history of Emmett County and the history of Petoskey and northern Michigan and all of that. So today I'm very pleased to welcome our guest, Val Meyerson, who is the Executive Director of the Petoskey District Library. Welcome.
Thank you, Judy. It's really lovely to be here. This is our local history room, and we have all sorts of materials here about the local area, including history, local authors, and also our Great Lakes collection. The Ole collection is in this room also.
Great. Well, this week I thought it would be wonderful for us to sit down and chat with another very important local organization and person that is important with that local organization, obviously the library. And so, Val, if you don't mind, I would like to ask you a few questions. And I know that you grew up in Birmingham in southern Michigan and went to high school down there. And then fill us in a little bit. I know then you traveled to another state for college.
Yeah, that is correct. I did grow up in Birmingham, Wiley E. Groves High School, and moved to Colorado, went to the University of Colorado in Boulder for my undergraduate degree.
Why does that make me think you were a ski bum, Val?
Yeah, it definitely was one of the reasons I chose Boulder.
Okay.
I love to ski and I love the mountains, and it was a really great experience and a wonderful 4 years, which extended a little bit longer than those original 4 years.
Sure. So you did get a lot of skiing in.
I did. It was a lot of fun. Lots of weekends up there. My sister lived in Winter Park one semester while I was doing my undergraduate work, and spent almost every weekend at Winter Park and Mary Jane skiing, and lots of bumps. My knees are, I think, really creaky now, partly from that semester at Mary Jane. Yeah.
Sure. Well, I know you came back to Michigan then, and you finished a master's degree in library science at Wayne State down in Detroit.
I did, and it took me a while actually to figure out that route. I really didn't know what I wanted to do with myself. I got my degree in 4 years. I had a business major and didn't really know what I wanted to do. And so if all else fails, what do you do when you're in Colorado is you go skiing. And so I wound up being a ski bum in Colorado for 3 years. I lived in Vail, Telluride, and Steamboat Springs, each for a year. And really, if anyone knows the mountains, they know, at least for me, the skiing brought me there, but the summers really made it special, because summers in the mountains are phenomenal. The hiking and the beauty and the crisp air is just lovely. So it was really fun.
I've never been out there in the summer, just to ski in the winter. So
summer in Colorado is really beautiful. Especially early summer, if you can get the wildflowers and whatnot, it's gorgeous.
Wow.
So yeah, and after that, you can only do that for so long. While in waiting tables for 3 years, you think, I don't know if I want to do this my whole life. And I really started thinking about, what do I want to do with myself? I need to figure this out. And of course, one of the things that I do whenever I go to a new community is go to the public library. And I love to read. I always have loved to read. And in Telluride, when I moved there, I went to the public library to get my library card.
Sure.
And lo and behold, this library is in the old jail. And to get to the periodical room, you have to go, and it was actually in the old jail cell, and you had to open up the jail door to get into this little teeny periodical room that was the jail cell. And it was just wonderful. And it turns out the librarian, and it's a little teeny library, there's only one librarian that works there, But she happened to get her degree at Wayne State University, so
Oh,
we
you're
had a
kidding.
lot in common,
Sure.
and I became very friendly with her and talked a lot about, like, what do I want to do with myself. And after a while of knowing her, she just looked at me and she said, Val, why don't you become a librarian? And the light bulb,
Sure.
one of the,
Yeah.
the light bulb
Yeah.
just went off, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I think that's it. I thought about being a teacher. I didn't really think that was going to work for me. I love books. I love reading. I love the public. I love kids. And for all of those reasons, that really put me in a good direction at that point.
Well, interesting, isn't it, though, how life takes its twists and turns and we fall into things, but you had the wonderful fortune of having these casual conversations with somebody, but yet really getting to know what it means to be in library science and to be a librarian and to run a library, even though that was a small one. But still, you really had an understanding, so when that light bulb went on, it felt really good, didn't it?
It did.
Yeah.
It felt right. And it was really good to know, after kind of wandering for a while, of knowing where I wanted to be and what I wanted to accomplish. Like, it felt really good. My biggest problem with that is I really didn't love school, which, like, I hate sharing that. People always are amazed when I tell them. I didn't really love school. I wasn't the best student. And the thought of having to go back to school was really anxiety-ridden for me. And I called, and of course I didn't have that much money, and how do you fund a master's degree? And I called the program at Wayne State because that's where my friend had gone.
Sure.
And she loved the program. Sure. And I spent a lot of time on the phone with the director of that program at Wayne. And it turned out that he was new at his job at Wayne, and Wayne's library program had lost accreditation. And he was brought in to reaccredit their program.
Sure.
And he needed students. And so Joe Micah is amazing. He was a wonderful mentor, and we hit it off really well. And he needed students, and so we negotiated. I needed a job. Check, I can get you a job. I said, I need to finish in a year. I can commit to a year, and I can work really hard for the year, but I can't commit to going to school for longer than a year. He said, check, I can make that happen. And then I also said, this next one was a little bit more difficult. I said, I really don't want to take the GRE. And I had taken my senior year of college, I had actually taken the law school admission test, thinking, I'll be a lawyer. What else, if you don't know what else to do, be a lawyer, right?
Yeah. Don't tell anybody that.
So, but that really wasn't right for me either. But I had taken the LSATs and had done, fairly well on it. And I said, listen, I took this other test. How different can the GRE be? Like, it shows how well I test. It shows, thinking ability and all of that stuff. Can you make that happen for me? And he said, I got to talk to some people at the graduate school. So he went, he worked his magic. They they got it so I could use my LSAT as my entrance exam, and started the program the following fall with Joe as the mentor. And it was a great program. And the other thing that was really eye-opening for me is, guess what? I found out I wasn't such a horrible student.
Well, it doesn't mesh, Val, when your love of books and your love of reading, and then not school. So
right. Well, I think I just was in the wrong program. I was in the business school in Colorado, which actually served me very well in my future career, having this business degree.
Sure.
But really, it wasn't where my passion was.
Mm-hmm.
And as soon as I got into library school and found that I love this is a long time ago that I was in school, and this is pre-internet.
Mm-hmm.
And library science was very different at that time. And learning how to research, I just loved it, learning all the different materials that were out there and the things that you needed to know, and the bibliographic records. that
card catalog.
the card catalog, learning
What's
all
that,
I
right?
know.
Right.
And
Oh my gosh.
I really loved all of that, and it was a lot of fun. And I worked really hard. I got my 30 hours in
Wow.
1 year, going straight through fall, winter, spring, summer.
Wow.
But was able to do that. And
Interesting. Well,
yeah.
I know that you were in Denver for a while, but then what brought you back up here to Northern Michigan?
Yeah, that I did when I got my degree in Detroit, again, not knowing where I wanted to land, and I missed the mountains, so I ended up, my first job was at the Denver Public Library, which was wonderful, a great place for me to start. Again, I had a great mentor there where I was working. But what I found is I missed my family. My whole family is in Michigan, and I really missed that connection, and I missed the water. That's the one thing. Colorado doesn't really have the water. You have the mountains, but not the water.
Right,
and
right.
so I made a hard decision to come back to Michigan, and I ended up in the southern area. I worked at the Wixom Public Library. That was my first job.
Sure.
And stepped pretty quickly into the directorship there. I was hired basically as the children's librarian, which was a lot of fun. I did that for about 6 months, and then their director had left. And my business degree really helped me get that job. I was very young at the time. Sure. And that business degree gave, I think, the board kind of that idea that I had at least budgeting. I could handle budgeting, because that's a big part of the director's position. Sure. And I worked there for a very long time. Well, not a very long time, but about 7-8 years. Okay. And met my husband and started having a family, and realized that I really wanted to be up north. We had, my parents had a home in Charlevoix when I was growing up. So that was, we summered here and wintered here on weekends and whatnot, weekend warriors for a long time. And so we had a love of the area. And my mother had a home still in Charlevoix. And in the 90s, my siblings, I have 2 siblings, moved here. So I had a sister that lived here and a brother that lived here. And so I was spending like almost every other weekend up here. And lo and behold, my sister sent me, once I had 2 children, I had taken a few years off work to be with my kids. And my sister, while I was off from the Wixom job, my sister sent me a newspaper article stating that the Charlevoix librarian was retiring and that they were going to be looking. And, the life is a full circle, because when I first got my library degree, of course, you start looking for jobs, and I blanketed kind of sending my resume out, and the Charlevoix Library was one of the places I sent my resume.
Interesting. Yeah.
And she sent me that, and I applied for the job and got it. Yeah. And my husband was very generous in picking up and moving to Northern Michigan. And we raised our family here. And my siblings are in Petoskey, so we made the decision to actually live in Petoskey, even though I was working in Charlevoix. We love the schools here, and being close to my sister and brother were really important to me. And so that's kind of what brought me here. Yeah.
And then you made the change to Petoskey Library, and I think that in your tenure here, there has been a lot of changes that you have brought. And I think some of that is just the times that we're in, I'm sure, and just meeting the demands of the public, or you listen to the feedback that you're getting from the public, and you go, yeah, we can do that. Sure, yep, we can do that program, we can do that. And it has really diversified, I think, what most people would think of what a library is. There's so many different things you do that don't even involve books.
Yeah, and it that is very true, which is one of the reasons I love my job, because it's something different every day, and it's not just about books. There's so much more that we do here.
Right.
And coming to Petoskey, it was really nice. I was in Charlevoix for about 13 years, and it was a wonderful, wonderful job, a great experience. And I used to always say it was the best library job in the state. But coming to Petoskey, I came here, and I came home. And that's what that meant. And working for your hometown library is a big difference. There's There's just a difference in
feeling,
a different feel to it. And part of it is because I know the community better.
Mm-hmm.
This is where I live. My kids went to school here. I had that history with the town and knowing the people here. And so it did have a different feel. And what was nice, my predecessor made it really easy. She did a lot of hard work with the public library. And we don't have time to go into the history of the founding of the library here and the funding of it and whatnot. But there have been a lot of problems and inequities, I should say, in how this library was funded and how it ended up here in the downtown area. And my predecessor did a lot of hard work to help with equalizing the funding. And so when she left, it was the townships and the surrounding areas were really ready to help fund the library, maybe in a different way than they had been approached to before. But we were able to get support. We have support from the city of Petoskey, of course, pays the majority of the millage, but the 4 surrounding townships also voted to support us with millage money. What that did is gave us that funding that we needed to really expand services so we could provide things that the community really wanted. Simple things like just opening on Sundays. Providing things like a fax machine for people, which you wouldn't think people need faxes in this day, but every day people come in here for a fax machine.
Interesting?
And really listening to the public on what their needs were and really becoming a yes library. When I first started here 5 years ago, that was our goal, is we wanted to turn all the no's into yeses and to become a yes library.
Val, a yes library.
Yeah.
And you certainly are, and you have been for the Great Lakes Chamber Orchestra. We've started a program here 2 years ago now. That was really geared for very, very young children, to introduce them to music, to instruments, to the different sounds the instruments make, and getting actively involved with movement and things like that. And the program, it's just been wonderful to house that program, if you will, at a library, which is a very comfortable place for many, many, many families, and especially young kids like that. Right. So the program has been just a lot of fun for us, and I think you've enjoyed it.
I have. I love it. And to me, it's a perfect fit. Music and libraries, you wouldn't think, what do we have in common? But to me, we're both safe spaces. We both provide things that are nurturing to the souls for people.
Yes. And
to me, that's like that perfect match where we have families that come in and that are here and are comfortable here, and they wouldn't necessarily go to the chamber orchestra because it's not as comfortable, or they don't know about it. And so I love bringing things that are not traditional into our building for our residents and families.
Well, and see. You're right in the sense of if you just even use the word expression. There's so much expression here in the library. I mean, every book is expressing something. And with the Great Lakes Chamber Orchestra, that's what we're about. And I know that certainly these times with COVID and the pandemic have certainly affected you. I know you're back up and running to a certain degree.
We are. We're open to the public. Our hours are slightly limited, but every day, Monday through Saturday, we're here. You can come in. We are requiring masks. We're not masking today because we're keeping our distance.
We're talking, trying to.
But we ask that people have their masks on. We're doing a really good job of keeping everything clean and following all the proper protocols. One issue people always wonder about is what happens with the returns, because people can borrow books from us and they go into their homes. Well, there's been a lot of studies done, a specific study targeting library materials themselves and how the virus lives on that material. And the study has shown that after 4 days, there's no sign of the virus. So we quarantine all incoming materials, whether it comes from a vendor or from a book drop or from the public. Everything goes into a quarantine room for 4 days. So we know that that is safe and clean when it goes back into our collection.
Right.
And when people are here, they're asked to sanitize their hands before they touch the materials. But so we're open for that part, but programming has totally changed. It's been really difficult.
I know.
Virtual programming is, we're trying to make that transition. We've been doing quite a few things outside. That's been a lot of fun.
I know you and I talked a little bit about that, and with Megan, with the Children's Library, and about trying to do the Young Children's Library series out on the lawn, maybe early September. We are considering a virtual program, a whole Kids Corner program, and we might be able to film some of those in the library just to have that, again, that comfortable space that I think the kids could really relate to. So we're both doing the best we can, aren't we?
We are, and every day is new, and we're looking to the future on how we can best provide services and find out what the community needs. With school starting, that might open a whole new avenue for us, that we'll be looking at how to support our families that are having kids in school right now, and some that are staying home may need extra support. So
that's true. You know, in this unusual time that we find ourselves in still, and maybe we don't know how long, do we, Val? And I feel so strongly that as a community we stand together, and Val and I believe that both very much so, whether it's the district library or whether it's the Great Lakes Chamber Orchestra. We are two important local organizations that mean a lot to our community and are important in different and yet some similar ways in our community. So a little bit different to be here in the library today with our Tuesday talk, but Val, I thank you so much for letting us come in and invade your space, and for you to share with us a little bit about you and about the library and what you're doing and what's happening. So,
well, thank you so much for coming in, and I love sharing with you and the folks that are watching this.
Great.
And so thank you for asking.
Great. Thank you so much.